everyone, it's Celeste and welcome back to my channel. My channel is all about cosplay! I teach you tutorials on how to make a costume, how to do the makeup, so you can become the character of your dreams. Today I'm talking about my Devil Homura costume. This costume is actually pretty big. I really enjoy it. It's got several pieces to it. It's got the dress, the main dress part, which, you know, it's the main dress, a tail part, the choker with this little charm. Oh, the charm is now broken, so I have to fix that. I just broke it. And then it's got the gloves, and then this big puffy extra tail thing. The wings! In this video, I will be talking about how I created this cosplay, but not the wing portion. So technically, we can just let this fly away. So this cosplay was actually featured in a magazine online called DKos. You can find the link in the description down below, or I think up here in the cards somewhere. I'm not sure. I'm really proud of this costume. I've been wanting to do a Madoka cosplay for a long time now, and I decided to finally do Devil Homura. This is a very interesting take on how I did it. This isn't an exact tutorial, but more of an inspiration video. I feel like I've been doing a lot of those recently. Materials I know are very expensive for cosplayers, so with this video I want to inspire you to be smart about how you use your fabrics and how much materials you will use. This is actually the amount of leftovers that I have from this cosplay. It's so small, it's all the materials minus the tulle. The tulle doesn't count because I need that for other outfits, but from the base fabrics, the sheer mesh and the holographic fabric that I used are all fits within this cup at the very bottom. So I'm like really proud at the fact that I used as much as I could into this cosplay. That's not to say that all costumes will be this way, but it takes a lot of creativity to not create waste. So I'm going to say challenge yourself to make a cosplay where you don't create a lot of waste and scrap fabric. I just want you guys to know that being a cosplayer means to give you guys inspiration too, so you don't have to follow my tutorial or my video exactly. If you have an easier way that works for you, go ahead and do it. I had a lot of fun shooting this with my friend Lyrica here in Denmark. It was so cold, but she was a champ and she stuck it out with me. And you know, it's featured in a cosplay magazine, so I'm really excited to be sharing this cosplay with you all. If you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe by clicking the red button down below so you never miss out on future cosplay content. Now, without further ado, let me show you how I made this outfit. It is a beast and it is going to take a lot of time, so here we go! I first wanted to show you that I'm using these panels and I painted them black. This is actually interfacing. I'm adding these additional side pieces so that the skirt bottom piece will flare out. I'm using interfacing because I wanted it to be very stiff and I didn't want people to step on it, so it will follow me very easily. I'm also using this black tulle and I'm using it to build up the volume in the bottom of the train of the skirt. So I'm going to be bunching it in many different ways in small strands and then putting it onto the... Originally, I started gluing individual tiny pieces of tulle at the bottom hem, and then I realized at first I thought I was doing a really great job. I think it was looking really nice. But then I realized I wasn't making a lot of headway. I had used up a lot of tulle in just gathering at this bottom part, and I still had the rest of this to cover to get the bulk of the skirt. Tulle itself is very thin, so making it very bulky requires a lot of material. Luckily, I have a giant bolt of black tulle, donated by my friend Sherry. Because the other method took a long time, I decided to start taking bundles of the tulle and cutting it in multiple sizes. This way I cover more area and I get a shredded effect. For some of the bigger pieces, I decided to sew it down so it sticks better. Ta-da! So this is the underside and it's actually going to be the top. So I'm going to be gluing a lot of the bigger pieces here for the volume so that the fabric later will sit on top of it. You can see here I'm starting out with the sewn pieces first because it covers more area and I'm doing it in curved directions. You can see that I cut a lot of different pieces and I'm just going to keep adding different areas of tulle until this entire piece is covered. I'm adding in different strands because I want different lengths and I want it to look shredded. I'm definitely going to be doing this all the way up until the middle back of my thighs, and that way I don't use up all my tulle, but it does use a decent amount and it has the volume that I want. I'll also go back and fill in any spots that I think are bald with more tulle. I'm going to be using this lace a lot for this video. I'm using it for the choker, for the wings. I'm going to be using it for the waistband of the inner-facing skirt, and I'm going to be also using it for the choker with the feathers. Here you can see I'm making it by just draping it around my neck, and then I'm going to cut that piece. I'm going to have to do this multiple times because I need this piece a lot. So to begin the choker, I'm going to be using little black feathers. I'm going to be using double the length of my neck for this piece, and I'm going to be using the middle part to find the middle of the choker, and then I'm going to fold over the side edges. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I don't want the feathers to poke me, and I also want a very nice clean top of the choker itself. That way when I finish adding the feathers, I have a nice clean top. Because feathers are funky on the way they lay, I'm going to be separating out left from right, and then I'm going to glue them down accordingly. This way, the feather choker is a little bit more uniform on how it lays on my neck. I decided to use universal adhesive or E6000 for the feathers on the choker. I wanted it to be a little bit flexible and I didn't want it to be as rigid as something else. I could have used tacky glue, but I know that takes a long time to dry. So instead, I'll be using this universal adhesive. It dries very quickly, like when I did my Crazy Rich Asians wedding dress. Since I had pre-planned where the feathers were going to go, all I had to do is glue them down and then secure it again with the end parts of the choker. I marked the end parts of the choker with tiny feathers because I know no one's going to be seeing it at the back of my neck, but it's still good to have that there, and then just keep adding all the feathers. Once you're done with all the feathers and the glue is still wet, that's when I folded over the rest of the choker to hide the feather tops. Once everything was dry, I used a hook and eye for the front of the choker. This is how it's going to secure itself to my neck, and that way it won't fall off. I'm also going to be attaching a charm later to this part, and that's why it has to be a hook and eye. I did sew these on in the back of the choker, so this way it wasn't going to be visible and I didn't have to make any additional cuts. Any other crazy anime character, their top has to be ridiculous. So with Homura, I created its own little pattern, and it kind of looks like this swimsuit thingy. So instead, I just created a pattern on interfacing again because I had so much scraps, and I just used that and I cut it out. So this is the fabric I'm using. I'm using a dark purple holographic fabric, and I'm just laying out the top of it with a little bit of extra leeway. The top actually is going to have an attached skirt and then another skirt underneath it, and that's the one that's the interfacing layer. So I'm going to pin it down and then cut it out. I just want to mention this fabric does not fray. Also, I'm cutting this on the fold. So I needed to make sure the top stays up, and the best way to do that is using mesh. I'm using nude skin mesh that I got from a thrifted top, the one that I used for my birthday video, and I'm actually going to be pinning this purple fabric onto it to make sure that it's symmetrical on both sides and that it fits my body really nice and snug. Because Homura's top is very weird, I'm going to be using this method of pinning it down onto the mesh, and then I'm going to be cutting out the shape that I need later. Once I was happy with how I'm placing it, I'm using this glue pen. It's like literally a glue stick, but it's sewing glue in a tube. It's amazing. It looks like lipstick. I kind of want to eat it. It also looks like candy. So I'm going to take this sewing glue pen and go all around the corners of the top. So once I got done, I marked out the top where I'm going to create the halter from the mesh, and then I slowly cut out the mesh from the top. So any excess parts I cut off. I left it on the actual strips that go to the back because I wanted it to be a little stronger than being really weak. I changed from a few different types of cutting utensils because of how close and how tight I needed the cut to be. Then I cut out a mini skirt and then I'm sewing it to the top directly. This won't matter how the seam looks because I'll be covering it with extra scrap fabric and feathers. Because I said I'm making it into a halter top, I'm going to turn over the top part of the mesh and hand sew it down. I didn't want to use a sewing machine because I think it would be a little bit too harsh and stretch the fabric, so I'm hand sewing it. Then I'm going to use 2 parts of the selvage. So I'm using clear thread, and then I'm using remnant scraps of the mesh to make straps for the halter top, and I'm just going to be sewing that down. I'm using snaps so I can secure it around my neck. So I have to cover up the rest of that tulle skirt, and I'm using some more of the purple holographic fabric, so I'm going to cut out a long piece. It's okay if it isn't symmetrical or even because I'm going to be stretching it out later. I just need enough scraps so I can make the gloves. I cut half my measurement of my waist on the previously mentioned in the beginning black lace, and now I'm using the cut out fabric and pleating it to fit onto the black lace. Of course I'm sewing it. Now that it's a half waist train, I'm going to start cutting it up and shredding it. This is because the skirt needs dimension, and so like, hooray for creative liberty! So what I'm doing is cutting out strips, and then I'm going to be doing that t-shirt pulley thing so it kind of looks more string-like. I'm also going to be adding tulle and feathers in for creating that extra bits of dimension. Before I continue working on the bigger skirt, I wanted to add the extra details to the top bodice part. Here you can see that I made a lot of extra add-ons by adding tulle in between and then sandwiching it with scrap fabric, and then putting feathers. So I'm going to be alternating throughout that on top of the bodysuit piece. To create the design on the neck that goes to the cleavage, I drew it out and then painted it onto a plastic bag. The paint I used was puffy paint in silver gray. And for obvious reasons, I'm cutting it out again. So this is exactly how the piece looks when I cut it out, and I wanted to showcase what it looks like with the plastic and pinning it down in location and then having the choker on top. For a side note, I was actually really scared to cut off the rest of the mesh on the inside of the dress. Yeah, I don't know why. It was just really scary, but I did do it. So now I just gotta do the extremely hard part on the back, and that is making that stupid little heart pattern. I'm not sure really what else to call it other than a stupid heart pattern, but this was really hard to do. So what I did do was create the actual design, and then I glued it down onto the fabric scrap piece that I was using, and then I cut it out. There's just a lot of cutting out in this video, okay? Cut it out! And now we have to peel it. Peel! Because the design is actually pretty strange, I knew it wasn't going to lay flat to my skin, so to give it some extra support, I'm gluing it down, then adding mesh on top of it. I got really nervous about the fabric not sticking together, so I went back with my universal glue and I just kept going on top of it like a crazy woman. This is what the two trains look like together. The tulle skirt has a button closure, and the fabric skirt attaches to the tulle skirt with the hook bar closure. They need more dimension, and so I'll be detailing them with tons of black feathers. There was no limit on where I could place the detailing pieces. You could say I went a little crazy with it. Now get out the rest of that material that you made the dress out of, and now you need to make the gloves. The gloves need to be the same material. I'm using Yaya Hans McCall's pattern M7397, and I'm using the long glove. Honestly, I didn't need to make it as long as I did, but that's okay. Make sure to follow the instructions of the pattern and you will be great. Weirdly, at this point, I still needed mesh fabric, so what I had to do was use the scraps that I had. I only needed 2 strips of mesh fabric for the gloves, so luckily I was able to recycle the last bits of mesh into the gloves. Homura has bands at the top of her biceps, so I'm going to fake it and attach them to the gloves. I'm doing this by sewing a strip of black hollow fabric to mesh and then sewing the mesh to the gloves. When the outfit was completed, I added all the large scraps of fabric and tulle back into the costume by sewing them in and cutting them into different shapes. Any extra feathers also were put in. I just wanted to showcase how much dimension is inside the skirt and how big the sheer volume it has. I hope you guys actually noticed my makeup. My makeup's very purple. I love purple. Homura's like color is purple. At the same time, like I didn't expect her to become as like anti-hero as she did. It does make a lot of sense when like Madoka becomes goddess. So I am planning that costume in the future. I'm just like really lazy. But I did make this cosplay. So in a future video, I will disclose a full tutorial on how I made the mini wings so you can wear it to conventions and have it for cosplay shoots. They're actually very maneuverable and they're lightweight, so it works with a lot of different kinds of outfits. I've made this outfit in different parts because I didn't want the dress itself to be heavy. The top is very sheer and kind of like see-through-y, so I definitely didn't want it to weigh down when I'm walking or if someone stepped on it. I had this dress in mind to be portable and easy to get to places with because Denmark is not as friendly with cosplay shoots. It's very difficult to get certain places if you don't have a car, and here it's not likely that you have a car. Like, I think you guys need to check out that anime. Secondly, you need to check out the movies afterwards and then come comment down below if you've already seen it. If you have already seen it, maybe you should check out what YouTube says to watch over here, or check out what I think you should be watching out. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and stay inspired, be creative, and I will see you in a future video. Bye!